thought-provoking podcast that sheds light on the challenges faced by young people living in urban areas. We highlight the resilience and creativity of young leaders who are finding innovative ways to overcome the challenges our young people are facing, inspiring listeners to take action to support them. This is A Different Cloth.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to A Different Cloth podcast. I am Jose. This is my guy, Angel.
Hey.
And the conversation has already been going, so we're just gonna jump right in. Hey, look, I hope you've been enjoying our last few episodes. Do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, let the world know about the podcast. We appreciate all the love and support and feedback. We want it all, so really appreciate that. What's up, Angel? How you feeling today?
I'm good. I can't complain. I'm sorry. I'm pretty, we've had a lot of conversations. We had like a pod outside of the pod, so it was good. It was healthy, though. So,
yeah, I agree. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about some leadership.
Let's go for it.
And I'm really excited. Leadership is obviously, there's so many angles you could take on the concept of leadership. Here's what I would just start with as a frame of reference is that, I firmly believe that we live in a society where everybody wants to be maybe not everybody, so let me rephrase that. A lot of people would like, I know, a lot of people would like to be the visible leader. And I say visible because I think a lot of times when we think leadership, we only think of stage, platforms, influence, pastors, leaders, in a church context, in a nonprofit context. And so, I want to just first say that leadership is, I would say that side of leadership is probably about 15 to 20% of the equation.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many other sides of leadership that people don't know about, focus on, or prepare for, which is why you see so many of those public leaders mess up, fall, because we haven't done the work to be ready for the stuff that's not visible. But a lot of people want the visible side of leadership, except you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Talk about what?
Well, because I remember my first conversation with you. You was like, I don't want to be the guy.
No.
Why?
But going by what you said, I'm just the opposite of that. I feel like I just don't want the platform. I don't want to be looked at or viewed or seen or out front. I'm just not into that stuff.
Okay. What makes you not into that, not interested in that? And let me say this. Let me start by saying that's great. That's real. I think there needs to be way more people that are up for leading without the visibility.
Yeah.
Because I think we can make a lot of things happen when people are willing to take that approach to leadership.
Well, I think leadership in general is more of the being instead of doing. Right?
Okay. Yeah, agreed.
But for me, the way I see leadership, I don't even think it's the way I see it. We can get deeper, but truly, I just feel like I'm best utilized serving people from a behind-the-scenes perspective.
Okay.
I think that's where I feel like I can possibly do both, maybe. But I feel like if I know I can get behind someone who is already kind of out front, I guess I enjoy serving other people to the point where I love to see other people's visions grow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's why it's like second nature to me. Like I have no problem like, oh man, I'm doing this, but one day I'm going to have my own thing. Like I don't think like that. I have never thought like that. I don't want to think like that. I think the reason why a lot of people fail at what they do is because they have very few people who actually come underneath them and say, actually, let me help you out from a different perspective, a different lane.
Oh, that's real. You're mentioning that too, like so much of what you do even now here at RAG is leadership. And I think we've seen it often when nobody's looking, no cameras are on, no like whatever. And to me, leadership, I think John Maxwell said this, that leadership equals influence. Like that's the basic definition of leadership. The more influence you have in a person's life, the more you can lead them. And when I look at your role here, but beyond that, your influence you have with the team here, like that to me says Angel is a bona fide leader, whether or not you are in, in the public perspective and view of leadership or not, and or whether you have a particular title or position or not, right? And like to me, and if I could just go there, I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves around leadership that I see today is that people don't want to lead until they get the opportunity to lead. Yeah. And to me, you're not a leader. Like leaders lead.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, leaders lead in every season. Don't get me wrong. You'll have to develop in your leadership ability, decision making, competence, like character. All of that's going to have to develop over time. But if you're a leader, you will lead. I told somebody before I moved out here that it was about me moving into a youth pastor position. And he told me, he said, look, I'm not promising you the position. He said, you can come out, you can serve in the youth ministry, but I'm not going to promise you the position. And I had this knee-jerk reaction of like, all good. Like, God, ain't nobody going to do what I'm doing, right? So like, leaders lead. And obviously it was a short time after that I got the youth pastor position.
Yeah.
Because I didn't need the position to be able to lead the people. And that's just one of the biggest things that I see that frustrates me, particularly with millennials, Gen Z, is, man, I gotta crown you the leader before you ever lead. And that's, yeah.
I just want to be an emotionally healthy leader. But so I battle, right? Because Tommy Nixon, we were at this thing one day, and he mentioned something along, if you remember it, let me know. But he mentioned something along the lines like, if you're expecting to be like 40, 50 years old and still in that same lane pushing, and like the minute you're kind of off of it and then no one else is behind you, kind of like in those shoes, kind of like the Larry Acosta, the Tommy Nixon, that?
Yeah.
Like if you don't have that,
yeah,
like it's a true detriment. You're not necessarily leading well or stewarding well or shepherding well, whatever word or phrase you choose to do. But I think for me, going back to me, right, and you're saying like, I guess my leadership or whatever, I don't see it that way. I truly just want to be a good friend. I want to love on people and I want to champion people. That is it.
Yeah.
And I think everyone can do that. You know what I mean?
I agree. In you doing that, though,
Okay,
you have gained influence in the lives of our team. So if we was just to check the evidence, even in the room right now, is Angel a leader to y'all?
Yep, absolutely.
Like,
cool.
And it's not because you came in like, yo, I'm a leader. You didn't come in like, yo, we're going to, you didn't do any of that. You were a good friend. I mean, bro, you've been consistent. You show up for people. And in you doing that, what you've done is you've put yourself in a position that, if I'm honest, if Angel ever had to go back to the back, and why I say the back, because the way our building is set up is there's like a room back there where most of the staff is. And like, if you ever had to go back there and like go in, like because stuff isn't getting done, I could promise you 10 times out of 10, they will listen and receive it.
I disagree.
Let's talk then.
So, because we have three people here. We have Pablo, we have Eric, and we have Jocqui here. They all said yes, right? But they've also never had to encounter me on a disciplinary type of conversation. That's why I'm the most appealing leadership at the moment. But the minute I start to say, hey, I'm not saying that you guys are not down for being corrected or accountability or any of those things, but let's be real, like I'm also pretty easygoing too at the same time. I'm not really a stickler or a pusher or, that person that says, that's that other part of leadership that I don't know how to walk into that, yeah.
No, it's great. I'm really glad you're going there.
Okay.
Because I would blatantly disagree with you,
Oh
even in what
man.
you said.
Okay, go.
But here's why. Think of the other side of that. Think of the people that bark orders with no relationship and no relational equity with the people that are on the team. Then they're looked at as bad leaders, dogmatic. There's no like their people's emotional tanks are empty. Bro, you have a level of influence that if you ever had to give a directive or an order, because you don't typically do it, because that's not your MO, they would be like, whoa, okay, this is different. Now, and to give the balance of it, I do believe that if you start off too loose as a leader, it is
Yeah.
so much harder to get strict. Whereas if you start off strict, it's a whole lot easier to like lighten up, right? So, there is a reality that maybe you started off too like nonchalant and things like that. But bro, because of the relationships you've built with the people here, if you was to go back there and ask somebody to do something, there's not many people, if any, in Rescue a Generation's team that would be like, nah, or that would give pushback, or that would be like, and even if you had to lean into whatever the situation is, and it's because of the influence that you've already created, the relationships you've already built, people would listen to what you said.
Yeah, let's take this off me. But going from the other perspective of it, right? So I don't think I'm not. And let's go back. I mean, you running a staff. You're a true leader, right? But I don't think or feel that I have the ability, or anyone has the ability to tell someone what to do, right? I don't think you can get people to do things that way. Like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. I think getting people to buy into the vision and making that vision their vision as well, and empowering them to be like, hey, this is the thing that you're stewarding. Like, and I just want to come behind you and say, hey, are you stewarding it that well? I mean, are you doing that well? And it's just more like, I think when you start when you start using, and I mean, words are everything for me, right? Words matter. When you start saying, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, for me, it almost comes off as like, oh, he just wants me to do what he wants to do. As opposed to, now, if I give you some buy-in and say, no, this is what you want to do as well. This is what you said you wanted to do.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help you elevate that,
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like, I don't know, I can never like,
Yeah, well, that's everything you're describing is what a leader should be. In John Maxwell's book, he talks about the 5 levels of leadership, and the lowest form of leadership is the title and position form of leadership, and that's where a lot of people get caught up in. I'm going to tell you what to do because I'm your boss, because I'm in the position. You have to listen to me. That's literally the lowest form of leadership, and it's the least successful form of leadership. It's like, bro, like, I mean, the amount of times people are gonna respect you for doing that is way less. Now, the highest form is they call it pinnacle leadership, and it's literally what you described. It's not only have I earned the right to challenge you, to call you out, but it's really I've empowered you to become the leader.
Yeah.
And literally, when you think leadership, that's why it's influence. It's like the more influence I have in somebody's life, the more effective I can be as a leader to that person.
Yeah.
The opposite of that is true. If I only, you talked about me running a staff, and that's what makes me a leader, which sure, there's a leadership component to running a staff.
Sure.
But if I had zero relationship with the people on our team, and I came in here every Monday during staff meeting, and I'm barking orders and saying what they're doing wrong, and literally that does not make me a good leader.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Yes, I would say you have that for sure. I think one of our first conversations, even like back then about leadership a couple months ago, was more of like being really honest, right? We spoke about Rag, and we spoke about like, man, God forbid something that happens to you tomorrow, where does Rag go? And those were my type of concerns of like, man, I don't really see it going anywhere past Jose. You know what I mean? And I know it was really hard conversation for us to have, but it's almost like even you could have looked at it and been like, oh, whatever. But you literally saw that and was like, all right, then what do I have to help build around to sustain it
Yeah.
past me, which makes a great leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, to your point, though, leadership is empowering other people to be the leaders they're called to be, right? You just think like leaders you would assume that leaders or healthy, good leaders would beget other leaders, right? So now I can help to develop and groom and serve and empower other people to be in a position to do what I do. It's one thing for me to be, which then I would love to take it this route. It's one thing for me to be really competent as a leader, and nobody else is as competent as me, so I have to be the one that's doing it, right? It's a whole nother thing for me to take my competence and then deposit and impart that into anybody and everybody else around me,
Yeah.
so that everybody else can lead. Now, I'm not saying lead what Jose's leading or lead exactly how Jose's leading. They can lead what they're leading their way, but with a deposit from me to help them develop their own competency.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, that is that leadership component that I think is just really, really important. And we had this conversation earlier, and I want to ask you the question for the camera's sake: is what is more important in leadership? Is it competency or is it character?
well, after our conversation. No, even before the conversation, I'm going with character for sure.
So I agree. And you look, I think people can grow in their knowledge on how to do things. We see that all the time, right?
Sure.
And people can usually, like, you come into a new position and you're not very familiar with the work that's being done. There's a learning curve. We know that. But, like, you can kind of get it and understand and then really get really good at what you're doing. But when you have character things as a leader that are not worked out, when you're constantly late, because to me, tardiness is a character thing, right? Um, when you don't show up the way you say you're going to show up, because that's a character thing. When you lie, that's a character thing, right? Like, what happens is you may have at one point had influence
Yeah.
in the life of the people around you, but your character has literally probably caused people to lose trust in
Right.
your ability to do what you say you're going to do. And as a leader, that's the reason to me character is so important, and which is way more important than competency, because I trust character more than I trust competency.
Yeah.
I trust who you say you're going to be, who you show me you're going to be,
Right.
right? Way more than what you're competent at.
Right. I feel like even competency, it only lasts so long because, I mean, if we do want this thing to grow, if we do want, like, Rag 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I'm praying looks nothing like the way it looks now, right? I mean, some basic stuff, right? Of course, what we do, but if we don't evolve, you know what I mean? So that means even what you have to have that character mindset to understand, like, oh, I need to develop, I need to see where we're going, I need to see what's changing, I need, all these things that take it. I was talking to somebody in the back, and we have 40-hour work week, right? And we have a bunch of tasks on our thing. And I remember asking the question of, like, man, like, out of all of that stuff, how much time do you actually have for yourself to develop in your current position? Like how do you become better at your position? And it's almost like, well, I have a bunch of tasks. I say, yeah, but then, like, where's the homework part of it? You know what I mean? If you want to be a preacher, how do you become a better preacher? Get into the word. You know what I mean? Like, the more word you know what I mean, the more you can, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think that part of, like, the competency part, I'm probably saying it horribly wrong, is that I think that's the part that can kind of fade. But I feel like your character, I don't know if it necessarily, like, fades. I guess it does, but I feel like that if that stays solid, you know what I mean? Like, I could follow someone who has great characteristics or who has great character and not so good at competency.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it the other way around.
Yeah, I am sold on what you just said. I even think, man, some of the reasons people have bought into rag has been, and don't get me wrong, like I think everybody has character flaws, right? I'm guilty, as anybody else is. But bro, I've showed up, for the most part the same way for the last 10 years. Like people for the most part can depend on what they're going to get out of me, right? Whenever that is, when I'm there, I'm there. They know kind of what I hold really valuable, and I think people can trust that, right? Which I think a good example would be this past season was really busy for us. And I was out a lot, bro. Like, and it sucked not being here because I wanted to be here in the room with the team.
Yeah.
But I never once felt like when I came back, people felt different about me, or like, I don't trust you no more, or it didn't feel like that. It probably felt a little bit of the opposite. It was like, man, I'm glad you're back. Like, it was a little bit more. I was welcomed back, and to me, it's not because I'm like, I'm gifted, sure, but not because I'm the most competent person at my position. Bro, literally, I had a coaching session yesterday where I had to like realize and own that I am an executive officer within RAG.
Right.
Because I don't think like, oh, I'm an executive officer within RAG. I literally think like I'm Jose with a vision and a passion, and I started this, and here we are, right? Like I had to get my mind around it. So like that alone tells you my competency as an executive officer within RAG still has a lot of developing to do, right?
Yeah.
But the character component and what I have shown up as over and over and over and over again, that I feel like people trust. People know, like, and then they also know when I'm going to be frustrated by things because of the same reason. Like they tend to know, like, yeah. So anyways, just my thoughts on, like, I would take character 10 times out of 10 over competency all day, every day.
Where does, I guess, vision come into play when it comes to leadership?
Yeah, I think vision is important. Let me say this though, like I think we need to define vision, right? Because when I think we hear vision, we tend to think like, what's my 10-year plan? And in business, and you're writing a vision statement, it's like, hey, if everything you're doing is working, what does that look like, right? Like,
Okay, so I'll give you some context,
Okay.
right? Larry Acosta, really good leader,
Yeah.
really dope dude. Tommy, really good leader, really dope dude. But the story that was told, right? Both of them sharing the story. Larry passed it on to Tommy.
Yeah.
But there was that portion in the middle where Larry, even though he passed it on, he didn't want to let go of the vision of what he saw it, what he saw it to be. So like, how important it is it to kind of like understand, like, all right, well, this is the vision for now, and can I now let go of it later on for what it could be later on? You know what I mean? Because I don't think neither of them were bad in that moment, but it was so interesting to see how, like, Tommy took something, saw it, and then all of a sudden, when he jumped into that position, his vision for it was like, phew,
yeah,
you know what I mean? But then now Larry's like, wait, that's not what I envisioned, kind of thing. Yeah. So I guess, like, it happens a lot. It happens a lot when you're a youth pastor, and it's time for you to kind of gracefully bow out of that, and the other youth pastor comes in and it kind of changes, right? The dynamic of the leadership changes, or the dynamic of what you do with the kids, and even the name changes, the cool name, like all of that changes. But it's kind of like, man, what you tend to see happen is a lot of like, it wasn't like how when I ran it. You know what I mean? So I guess that perspective of like, is it okay to like, for visions to change? Is it okay for you to change your vision? Like, what does that dynamic look like in leadership? And does character have a part to play in it? I said a lot right now.
Yeah, no. So yes, it is okay for vision to change, but I think the measure or level of the change to me would be determined by how good of a leader the original leader is. Here's what I mean by that. You use Larry and Tommy for an example. Tommy's vision was for sure different than Larry. That was clear from day one. But Tommy's vision never veered away from what Larry originally saw UIWI becoming, right? Tommy's vision was There's just a different way we can go about it. So it wasn't like Larry was going in one direction and Tommy said we're going to go all the way over here. Yeah. That wasn't the case. The same goal is being accomplished, which is the vision of what they were trying to get done in the first place. And yes, it is very, very, very hard when God trusts you with a vision of something to pass it off, because it literally becomes like a baby to you. It's like, oh man, like I want to make sure this goes well and there's nothing wrong. And so when you give it to somebody else, it's like you're literally letting somebody else hold your baby.
Yeah.
And that's a hard concept to grasp. Now, character, and in my conversation even with Tommy, how the reason Larry was able to give it to Tommy, even though Larry was a little reluctant to just but the only reason he was able to really trust Tommy was because of the character that Tommy showed over and over and over again. Okay. How Tommy ran his org, how Tommy showed up for his family, how Tommy literally was in his community and invested. That was character, so it made it easy for Larry to trust that I can trust somebody with great character with my vision. So then that just kind of hit me, because as a leader, I believe this. I believe leaders are always looking for other people that they can trust with their vision. I am guilty of this. One of the things that have kept me from being willing to just trust people with my vision is when I've seen bad character in them. Like it's been like an Achilles heel to me of like, man, I want to give you so much and I want to trust that you're going to like run and make this your own vision. So I'm not asking you to like take my vision and do what I'm asking, but like, no, like this is a part of your development, your season of life, the things God's calling you to as well. And that character component as a leader has been the one thing that I would say, if I was ever reluctant to give somebody something, it's literally predominantly been because of a character conversation that I'm having in my head about what I've seen from that person.
Yeah. All right. So I got like a little final thought, right? Do you feel like now, judging everything we've spoken about, what's not a leader, what's a leader, character, vision, now do you feel a lot more comfortable, or have you set RAG up to the point where now you can see staff members or whatever and say like, oh, actually, God forbid something does happen to me, I think we're okay?
Yes. Ironically enough, even when we had that first conversation, I have been building RAG like that from day one. I just haven't fully trusted to give more away. And I was challenged the last few months for two things. Number one, to be willing to give more away, but also a challenge to call people to a higher standard so that I can trust to give more away. I fully think that if something was to happen to Jose tomorrow, God forbid, I fully think RAG would keep going and continue to grow. I think, you look at Moses and Joshua, and I believe that same thing happens in leadership, right? Where there is somebody who starts the vision and they get it to the place. And I think there are some people that can actually see the promised land, but like there are these, you get to this place where, Moses is dead. And that's literally how Joshua chapter 1 starts. She says, Joshua, Moses is dead. Now it's your turn to take it and run, right? And so I do think that RAG is going to live on well beyond me. And I am still, and this is still a daily process for me, but I am still working on getting way more out of my hands so that people are already doing what it is that they could and should be doing. Yeah. Now, I don't plan on leaving in the next 5 years or nothing, but the more I can get out, the more I can trust that.
5 years is fast.
God forbid something happen. Right. Absolutely, things will carry on.
Right. Okay. Solid. Kind of closing up a bit. Okay, we spoke about character, and character being that like main component of like good leadership, of being a good leader, being a good steward. How does one develop better character? I'm choking.
Yeah, no, I think I was thinking about this question of how do you develop better character. To me, I feel like my character has always grown exponentially in hard seasons in seasons of obscurity. Like I think when I think of David, I think David's character was developed on the backside of the mountain, not in the face of Goliath. Like in the face of Goliath or when he was king, and don't get me wrong, we know David had some character flaws, right? But like he showed up the way he was because of how he was developed when he was rejected by his parents and his brother. You know, that stuff, the stuff that if you handle it the right way and you lean into those, man, literally there can be growth in your character. And so I just think leaning into hard things when they're happening is a way that it'll develop your character. So a prime example would be I've been divorced before. That was a extremely painful season for me, extremely painful. But I leaned into the pain, and my character was developed through the divorce.
Yeah.
So I didn't come out of there still looking wounded. I came out of there better because my character was developed in the hard season. And so I just think how you handle hard seasons or seasons of obscurity would literally determine how your character is developed.
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire. What's one way we can be a better leader this week?
Well, I think you should ask people, get some feedback on your leadership, right?
Okay.
Like, hey, how am I doing as a leader in your life?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes in our head we think we're crushing it as a leader, but that's not what everybody else is experiencing. And so just get some feedback around your leadership.
Yeah. I think for my thing, I would say just love on people, right? Be an advocate for people. Yeah. And I think got to do the rest.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Go sign off?
Guys, we thank you for listening. This conversation around leadership. We're going to have more conversations like this. Actually, I would love for you guys to let us know what you want us to talk about. If there's topics that we haven't touched yet regarding leadership or youth or, whatever it is, if you want to hear more from our stories, just reach out to us. Let us know what's troubling you right now. What are you working through right now? We'll have that conversation. Stay subscribed, tune in, like, share. Peace.